Maya Chen discovered the devastating truth on a Tuesday morning while reviewing her credit report for a mortgage application. $75,000 in student loan debt under her name, debt she had never taken on, for an education she had never received. Her parents had co-signed private student loans for her younger sister Lily, but somehow Maya's social security number had ended up on the paperwork instead. The betrayal cut deeper than any financial fraud because it revealed the lengths her family would go to protect their golden child while sacrificing their responsible daughter. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow she saved something extra special for you. Growing up in suburban Denver, Maya had always been the reliable daughter in the Chen family. While her parents immigrated from Taiwan when she was barely 2 years old, they brought with them traditional expectations about academic excellence and family loyalty. Maya embraced these values wholeheartedly, earning straight A's throughout elementary and middle school while helping translate documents for her parents and managing household responsibilities that her younger sister Lily seemed incapable of handling. The favoritism toward Lily began subtly when Maya was 8 and Lily was 5. Their mother would light up whenever Lily entered the room, cooing over her perfectly round face and natural charm. Meanwhile, Maya's accomplishments were acknowledged with perfunctory nods and immediate redirections toward what needed improvement. When Maya brought home a perfect score on her state math assessment, her mother glanced at the paper briefly before asking if she had remembered to help Lily with her kindergarten homework. The pattern solidified during Maya's middle school years. Every family dinner conversation revolved around Lily's needs, interests, and activities. If Lily wanted Chinese food, they ordered Chinese food, even though Maya had developed a severe intolerance to MSG that left her with splitting headaches. If Lily wanted to watch cartoons during study time, the television stayed on, despite Maya's protests that she needed quiet to concentrate on her advanced placement coursework. Maya's academic achievements became background noise to Lily's smallest victories. When Maya was accepted into the National Honor Society in 8th grade, her parents attended the ceremony but spent the entire reception discussing Lily's improvement in reading comprehension with other parents. When Lily finally learned to tie her shoes at age 7, 2 years later than most children, her parents celebrated with a special dinner and gifts as if she had cured cancer. The most telling incident occurred during Maya's freshman year of high school. She had been selected for a competitive summer program at Colorado State University that would allow her to earn college credits in advanced mathematics. The program cost $1,200, which Maya had saved by tutoring younger students and working weekends at her uncle's restaurant. 2 weeks before the deposit deadline, her parents informed her that they needed her college fund money to pay for Lily's enrollment in an exclusive private art camp. Lily had decided she wanted to be an artist after watching a documentary about Frida Kahlo, despite never showing particular artistic talent or sustained interest in any creative pursuit. The art camp cost $1,500 and would last only 2 weeks, compared to Maya's month-long academic program that would give her tangible advantages for college applications. When Maya protested, her father explained that Lily needed encouragement to build confidence, while Maya would succeed regardless because she was naturally gifted. Maya watched her carefully saved money disappear into Lily's temporary whim while her own educational opportunities slipped away. She spent that summer working double shifts at the restaurant, listening to Lily complain about how boring art camp was and how the other kids were mean to her. By the end of July, Lily had abandoned any pretense of artistic interest and moved on to declaring she wanted to be a marine biologist after watching a nature documentary. High school intensified the disparity in treatment. Maya maintained a perfect GPA while participating in debate team, math club, and volunteer work at the local library. She took every advanced placement course available and scored in the 99th percentile on her PSAT. Meanwhile, Lily struggled academically, requiring expensive tutoring that consumed significant portions of the family budget. When Maya suggested she could tutor Lily for free, her parents declined, explaining that Lily needed professional help because Maya was too impatient and demanding. The college application process revealed the full extent of her parents' financial priorities. Maya had researched scholarship opportunities extensively and applied to dozens of programs, understanding that her family's income level made need-based aid unlikely but merit scholarships possible. She was accepted to several prestigious universities with partial scholarships that would cover roughly 60% of her costs. The remaining expenses would require student loans or family contribution. During a family meeting to discuss college financing, Maya presented detailed spreadsheets showing loan amounts, interest rates, and projected post-graduation debt for each school option. She had even researched starting salaries in her intended field of computer science to demonstrate the financial viability of her education investment. Her parents listened politely before her father announced they had already decided she should attend the local state university and live at home to minimize costs. The decision wasn't based on financial necessity, but on reserving resources for Lily's future education. Her parents explained that Lily would likely need more support and assistance throughout college, so they needed to preserve their savings and borrowing capacity for her needs. Maya's academic excellence was actually working against her because her parents assumed she would thrive anywhere, while Lily's struggles meant she would require expensive private universities with extensive support services. Maya felt the familiar sting of being penalized for her competence and responsibility. She had worked harder, achieved more, and planned better than her sister, only to have her opportunities limited because her parents needed to accommodate Lily's deficiencies. The message was clear: excellence was expected but not rewarded, while mediocrity received endless support and resources. Despite her disappointment, Maya enrolled at the University of Colorado, Denver, living at home to reduce costs as her parents had insisted. She declared a double major in computer science and business, determined to maximize her earning potential and achieve financial independence as quickly as possible. Her course load was demanding, but she thrived in the challenging environment, earning recognition from professors and opportunities for research projects. During her sophomore year, Maya secured a coveted internship at a tech startup downtown. The position required her to work 20 hours per week while maintaining her full course load, but the experience was invaluable and came with modest compensation that she saved religiously. She had learned not to rely on her parents for financial support and was building her own resources for the future. Meanwhile, Lily's high school experience continued to drain family resources. She changed her intended college major every few months, requiring different preparatory courses and activities. One semester, she was passionate about environmental science. The next, she was convinced her calling was international relations. Each new interest required specialized tutoring, educational trips, or expensive equipment that her parents provided without question. Lily's grades remained mediocre despite the extensive support, but her parents explained this as evidence that she was exploring her options and developing her interests. When Maya suggested that perhaps Lily should focus on mastering fundamental skills before jumping between subjects, her parents accused her of being unsupportive and jealous of her sister's creative spirit. The final straw came during Maya's junior year of college. She had been selected for a semester abroad program in Singapore that would provide invaluable international experience in technology markets. The program cost $8,000 beyond her regular tuition, money she had been saving from her internship and part-time work. She presented the opportunity to her parents, not asking for financial assistance, but informing them of her plans. Her parents' response was swift and decisive. They forbade her from participating in the program, explaining that they needed her to remain local to help support Lily during her senior year of high school. Lily was struggling with college applications and needed Maya's assistance with essays and interviews. Additionally, her parents revealed they were planning to take out a home equity loan to pay for Lily's college education and needed Maya's part-time income to help with household expenses. Maya realized with crystal clarity that she was viewed not as a daughter with her own dreams and aspirations, but as a resource to be deployed in service of Lily's needs. Her academic achievements, financial responsibility, and careful planning were valuable only insofar as they could be redirected towards supporting her sister's endeavors. The Singapore opportunity, which could have transformed her career prospects, was dismissed because it conflicted with her assigned role as Lily's unpaid support system.
That night, Maya made a decision that would define the next phase of her life. She would complete her degree, but she would do so with the understanding that her family's interests and her own interests were fundamentally incompatible. She would build her future with the assumption that she was essentially on her own, emotionally and financially. The realization was heartbreaking but also liberating, freeing her from the exhausting cycle of seeking approval and support from parents who had already allocated their resources and attention elsewhere. Maya declined the Singapore program, but used the money she had saved to invest in additional certifications and online courses that would enhance her technical skills. She increased her work hours and began networking aggressively within the Denver tech community. If her family wouldn't support her ambitions, she would create her own opportunities through determination and strategic planning. During her senior year, Maya's academic performance reached new heights despite her increased work commitments. She graduated summa cum laude with multiple job offers from respected technology companies. Her parents attended the graduation ceremony, but spent most of the reception discussing Lily's upcoming college plans with other families. Maya's achievement was noted briefly before conversation shifted to the more pressing concern of ensuring Lily's success in her freshman year. Maya accepted a position with a rapidly growing software company in Austin, Texas, a decision that surprised her parents, who had assumed she would remain in Denver to continue supporting the family. The job offered excellent starting salary, comprehensive benefits, and opportunities for rapid advancement in an expanding market. More importantly, it provided the geographic distance Maya needed to establish her independence and build relationships based on mutual respect rather than family obligation. The move to Austin was both exhilarating and lonely. Maya threw herself into her new role, working long hours and volunteering for challenging projects that showcased her abilities. Her colleagues appreciated her technical skills and work ethic, creating the professional recognition she had never received at home. Within 18 months, she had earned a promotion and significant salary increase, validating her decision to prioritize her career development. Maya's personal life in Austin developed more slowly, but eventually she formed meaningful friendships with colleagues who shared her interests and values. She discovered the joy of relationships based on choice rather than obligation, people who appreciated her achievements without immediately redirecting attention to someone else's needs. For the first time, Maya experienced being valued for her own qualities rather than her utility in supporting others. Communication with her family became sporadic and surface level. Monthly phone calls focused on updates about Lily's college experience, which was proceeding exactly as Maya had predicted. Lily changed her major 3 times during her freshman year, struggled academically despite attending an expensive private university, and required constant emotional support from their parents. Maya's own professional successes were acknowledged briefly before conversations returned to strategies for helping Lily navigate her various challenges. Maya learned to manage her expectations during these family interactions. She shared minimal information about her work and personal life, understanding that her parents' interest was limited and their capacity for genuine celebration of her achievements was non-existent. The emotional distance was painful but necessary for her continued growth and mental health. 2 years into her Austin career, Maya began considering purchasing her first home. The real estate market in Austin was competitive, but her income and savings made home ownership achievable with careful planning. She researched neighborhoods extensively, comparing school districts, commute times, and investment potential, even though she was single and had no immediate plans for children. The mortgage application process required comprehensive financial documentation, including credit reports, employment verification, and debt analysis. Maya had always been meticulous about her finances, paying off her student loans ahead of schedule and maintaining excellent credit scores. She anticipated the mortgage approval would be straightforward given her financial stability and clean credit history. Maya requested her credit report on a Tuesday morning in March, expecting to review familiar information before submitting her mortgage application. Instead, she stared at her computer screen in complete bewilderment. Listed among her debts were private student loans totaling $75,000, loans she had never taken out, for education expenses she had never incurred. The loans were distributed across 3 different lenders, all originated during her sister's freshman and sophomore years of college. The payment history showed regular monthly payments, suggesting someone had been servicing the debt, but Maya had never made a single payment or even been aware the loans existed. Her social security number was associated with each loan, but the educational institution listed was Lily's expensive private university, not Maya's state school. Maya's hands trembled as she scrolled through the detailed credit report, trying to understand how her identity had been used to secure loans for her sister's education. The implications were staggering.
Not only had someone committed identity theft, but they had used her excellent credit to secure private loans that would have been unavailable to Lily based on her own financial profile. Worse, the debt was affecting Maya's credit utilization and could jeopardize her mortgage application. Her first instinct was to contact the credit reporting agencies to dispute the erroneous information, assuming some administrative error had occurred. However, as she examined the loan details more carefully, the truth became increasingly apparent. The loans had been originated with her social security number and personal information, but the educational expenses were clearly for Lily's benefit. Someone with access to Maya's personal information had deliberately used her identity to secure funding for Lily's college costs. The realization hit Maya like a physical blow. Her parents, the people who should have protected her interests and identity, had stolen her personal information to secure loans they couldn't qualify for on their own or didn't want to burden Lily with directly. They had committed identity theft against their own daughter to provide financial benefits to their favored child, calculating that Maya's responsible nature and strong credit would make her an ideal victim for their fraud. Maya spent the rest of the morning calling each lending institution to gather more information about the loans. The conversations were frustrating and revealing in equal measure. Each lender confirmed that the loans had been originated with her social security number and personal information, but the funds had been dispersed directly to Lily's university for tuition and living expenses. When Maya explained that she had never applied for or authorized these loans, the customer service representatives expressed sympathy, but explained that she would need to file formal disputes and potentially police reports to resolve the situation. The student loan servicer for the largest debt, a $40,000 private loan, provided the most disturbing information. The loan application had been submitted online using Maya's social security number, employment information, and income data from her internship during college. Someone had meticulously gathered her personal and financial information to create a compelling loan application, demonstrating premeditation and sophisticated knowledge of the lending process. When Maya asked about the co-signers on the loans, she learned that her parents had indeed signed as guarantors, but their income alone had been insufficient to qualify for the full amounts requested. Maya's higher income and excellent credit had been necessary to secure the private loans that supplemented Lily's financial aid package. Her parents had essentially used her identity as a financial tool to provide opportunities for Lily that they couldn't afford independently. The afternoon brought a series of phone calls to legal aid organizations and financial counselors as Maya tried to understand her options for resolving the identity theft. The advice was consistent but daunting. She would need to file police reports, dispute each loan individually, and potentially pursue legal action against her own family to clear her name and credit. The process could take months or years, during which the fraudulent debt would continue to impact her financial standing. Maya's mortgage application, which had seemed like a simple next step in her financial planning, was now impossible until she could resolve the loan situation. The fraudulent debt represented nearly 30% of her annual income, making her debt-to-income ratio unacceptable for mortgage approval. Her parents' theft had not only violated her trust and privacy, but had also jeopardized her immediate financial goals and long-term plans. That evening, Maya sat in her Austin apartment, staring at printed copies of the credit reports and loan documents spread across her coffee table. The evidence of her family's betrayal was undeniable, documented in official financial records that would follow her for years if left unresolved. She had always known her parents favored Lily, but she had never imagined they would commit crimes to support that favoritism. The emotional impact of the discovery was as devastating as the financial implications. Maya had spent years building her independence and financial stability, only to learn that her family had been secretly undermining her efforts by stealing her identity.
The loans meant that strangers had better access to accurate information about her finances than she did, and her credit was being used to benefit someone else without her knowledge or consent. Maya's phone buzzed with a text message from her mother, a routine check-in asking about her work and whether she had any updates to share. The casual tone of the message, sent just hours after Maya had discovered the massive fraud, highlighted the scope of her parents' deception. They had been maintaining normal family communication while secretly using her identity to commit financial crimes, treating her as both a victim and an unwitting accomplice in their scheme. The decision Maya faced was stark and painful. She could protect her family by absorbing the financial consequences of their fraud, taking responsibility for loans she had never authorized and debts she had never incurred. This path would preserve family relationships while sacrificing her own financial future and rewarding her parents' criminal behavior. Alternatively, she could protect herself by reporting the identity theft and pursuing legal remedies, actions that would likely destroy her family relationships, but preserve her financial integrity and hold her parents accountable for their choices. Maya had spent her entire life prioritizing family harmony and accepting unfair treatment to maintain peace. She had absorbed disappointments, sacrificed opportunities, and suppressed her own needs to accommodate her parents' favoritism toward Lily. The loan fraud represented the ultimate expression of that dynamic, with her parents literally stealing her identity to provide benefits they couldn't afford for their preferred daughter. As Maya prepared for bed that night, she realized that her family's betrayal had inadvertently provided her with perfect clarity about their relationship and her priorities. The decision was no longer about choosing between family loyalty and personal interests because her family had already made that choice by victimizing her. The only question remaining was whether she would continue to enable their behavior or finally demand accountability for their actions. The next morning brought a renewed sense of purpose as Maya began documenting every aspect of the loan fraud and preparing to take decisive action. She had built a successful career and financial foundation through her own efforts, and she refused to allow her parents' crimes to determine those achievements. The road ahead would be difficult and emotionally costly, but Maya was prepared to fight for her financial future and personal integrity regardless of the consequences for family relationships that had already been irreparably damaged by her parents' choices. Maya understood that confronting her family's fraud would require the same determination and strategic thinking that had driven her professional success. She had learned to thrive independently, and now she will use those skills to protect herself from the people who should have been protecting her. The battle ahead would test every aspect of her strength and resolve, but Maya was ready to reclaim her identity and build a future from the toxic dynamics that had defined her family relationships for far too long. Maya spent the next week methodically building her case against the identity theft, treating the investigation with the same systematic approach she applied to complex software projects at work. She created detailed spreadsheets documenting each fraudulent loan, including origination dates, amounts, payment histories, and contact information for every lending institution involved. The meticulous documentation would be essential for filing disputes and potential legal proceedings. Her first step was contacting a consumer protection attorney who specialized in identity theft cases. The consultation revealed the complexity of her situation and the challenges she would face in proving her innocence. Since her parents had co-signed the loans and possessed legitimate access to her personal information as family members, establishing criminal intent would be more difficult than typical identity theft cases involving strangers.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
The attorney explained that Maya's case fell into a gray area of financial fraud, where family members exploit trust and access to commit crimes against relatives. These cases were often more emotionally devastating than stranger fraud because they involved deliberate betrayal by people who should have protected the victim's interests. The legal remedies were similar to other identity theft cases, but the emotional and family dynamics created additional complications. Maya learned that her first step should be filing a police report to establish an official record of the crime. The report would be necessary for disputing the loans with credit agencies and potentially pursuing criminal charges against her parents. However, the attorney warned that many law enforcement agencies were reluctant to pursue financial crimes between family members, often treating them as civil disputes rather than criminal matters. The prospect of filing criminal charges against her own parents was emotionally overwhelming, but Maya understood that official documentation was necessary to protect her financial future. She had spent years building her credit and career, and she refused to allow her parents' crimes to destroy her achievements. The fraudulent loans represented not just money, but years of stolen opportunity and betrayed trust. Maya scheduled an appointment with the Austin Police Department's Financial Crimes Division for the following Monday. Over the weekend, she prepared a comprehensive presentation of evidence, including loan documents, credit reports, and a detailed timeline showing her whereabouts during the loan application periods. She had been living in Austin during most of the loan originations, making it impossible for her to have applied in person at institutions in Colorado. The police interview was professional but emotionally draining. Detective Sarah Rodriguez listened carefully as Maya explained the discovery of the fraudulent loans and presented her evidence. The detective asked detailed questions about Maya's relationship with her parents, their access to her personal information, and any previous financial irregularities she might have noticed. Maya found herself defending her family while simultaneously accusing them of serious crimes. She explained that while her parents had always favored her sister, she had never suspected them of criminal behavior. The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming as she tried to reconcile her image of her parents as law-abiding immigrants with the evidence of their sophisticated financial fraud. Detective Rodriguez filed the official police report and provided Maya with case numbers she would need for disputing the loans. However, the detective also explained that investigating financial crimes between family members was challenging and that prosecution would depend on the district attorney's assessment of the evidence and likelihood of conviction. Maya understood that criminal charges were possible but not guaranteed. Armed with the police report, Maya began the laborious process of disputing each fraudulent loan with the respective lenders. The conversations were frustrating and time-consuming, requiring her to explain repeatedly that she had never applied for or authorized the loans. Each lender had different procedures for investigating identity theft claims, and the process could take months to complete. The largest loan, a $40,000 private loan through Premier Education Lending, required the most extensive documentation. Maya spent hours on the phone with fraud investigators, providing employment records, bank statements, and sworn affidavits attesting to her innocence. The company's security department launched a formal investigation that would review the original application materials and attempt to verify how Maya's information had been obtained and used. While waiting for the fraud investigations to proceed, Maya faced the immediate problem of her compromised mortgage application. The fraudulent debt made it impossible for her to qualify for the home loan she wanted, forcing her to postpone her home buying plans indefinitely. The delay was financially costly since Austin's real estate market was appreciating rapidly, meaning she would pay higher prices for the same properties if she waited months or years to resolve the loan disputes. Maya's work performance began to suffer as she spent increasing amounts of time dealing with the fraud investigation during business hours. Phone calls with lenders, attorneys, and law enforcement agencies required privacy and concentration that was difficult to maintain in her open office environment. Her manager, Jennifer Walsh, noticed Maya's distraction and scheduled a private meeting to discuss her recent performance issues. Maya had always maintained strict boundaries between her personal and professional life, but the scale of the identity theft made complete separation impossible. She explained the situation to Jennifer in general terms, emphasizing that she was dealing with a serious financial fraud that required legal attention during business hours. Jennifer was understanding and offered to adjust Maya's schedule to accommodate the legal proceedings, demonstrating the supportive workplace relationships Maya had built in Austin. The contrast between her professional relationships and family dynamics became increasingly stark as Maya navigated the fraud investigation. Her colleagues offered genuine support and practical assistance without expecting anything in return, while her family had literally stolen her identity for their own benefit. The difference highlighted how Maya had unconsciously recreated healthier relationship patterns in her chosen professional environment. 3 weeks after filing the police report, Maya received a call from Premier Education Lending's fraud investigation team. The security analyst, Michael Torres, had reviewed the original loan application and discovered irregularities that supported Maya's identity theft claim.
The application had been submitted from a Colorado IP address during a time when Maya's employment records showed she was working in Austin, providing clear evidence that she could not have been the applicant. More damaging to her parents' case, the loan application included details about Maya's Austin employment and salary that would have been impossible for Lily to know unless someone had provided insider information. The application demonstrated sophisticated knowledge of Maya's financial situation and personal details, strongly suggesting that someone with intimate access to her information had deliberately committed fraud. Michael Torres explained that Premier Education Lending would classify the loan as fraudulent and remove it from Maya's credit report within 30 days. However, the company would also pursue collection efforts against the actual loan recipients and cosigners, meaning Maya's parents and sister would become directly responsible for the debt they had fraudulently obtained. The consequences of their crime were beginning to materialize in ways they had not anticipated. Maya felt a mixture of relief and apprehension as the first loan was officially recognized as fraudulent. Relief because her innocence was being vindicated and her credit would begin to recover. Apprehension because her parents would soon face financial and potentially legal consequences for their crimes. Despite their betrayal, Maya struggled with the knowledge that her actions were causing them serious problems. The other two lenders moved more slowly in their investigations, but the evidence from Premier Education Lending strengthened Maya's case with the remaining companies. Each successful fraud determination created precedent and documentation that supported her claims with other institutions. The process was tedious, but Maya could see progress toward resolving the identity theft completely. During this period, Maya's communication with her family remained superficial and infrequent. Her parents continued their monthly check-in calls without any acknowledgement of the loan situation, suggesting they remained unaware that Maya had discovered their fraud.
The cognitive dissonance of maintaining normal family conversation while actively investigating their crimes was emotionally exhausting. Maya wondered if her parents had convinced themselves that their actions were justified, or if they simply assumed she would never discover their deception. Perhaps they had intended to pay off the loans themselves and transfer the debt away from Maya's name before she noticed. Regardless of their reasoning, their failure to confess or make amends after the fact demonstrated a level of selfishness and entitlement that Maya found difficult to comprehend. 2 months after beginning the fraud investigation, Maya received the call she had been dreading. Her mother's voice was strained and confused as she explained that they had received threatening letters from debt collectors demanding payment on student loans they claimed to have co-signed. Maya's mother insisted there must be some mistake because they had never co-signed any loans in Maya's name. The conversation was surreal as Maya listened to her mother's protestations of innocence while holding documented evidence of her parents' fraud. Maya realized that her parents had compartmentalized their crime so effectively that they might have genuinely forgotten the details of what they had done. The psychological gymnastics required to maintain their denial was remarkable and disturbing. Maya chose not to reveal her knowledge during this initial conversation, instead suggesting that her parents contact the lenders directly to clarify any confusion about the loans. She wanted to see how far her parents would take their denials before confronting them with evidence of their crimes. The strategic patience was difficult to maintain, but Maya understood that timing would be crucial for any eventual confrontation. Over the following weeks, Maya's parents made increasingly frantic calls as debt collectors escalated their efforts to collect on the fraudulent loans. Her parents' financial situation deteriorated rapidly as they struggled to manage the unexpected debt burden on their fixed retirement income. The home equity they had planned to use for their own retirement security was now at risk due to their criminal actions. Maya received another desperate call from her father, this time with her mother and Lily listening on speakerphone. The family conference call was an intervention of sorts, with all three of them appealing to Maya's sense of family loyalty and responsibility. They argued that the loans had ultimately benefited the family by ensuring Lily's education, and that Maya's success proved she didn't need the money as much as they did. The conversation revealed the depth of her family's entitlement and their fundamental misunderstanding of Maya's character. They genuinely believed that Maya's financial stability and career success created an obligation for her to absorb the consequences of their poor decisions. They could not comprehend that Maya's achievements were the result of her own hard work and sacrifice, not resources that belonged to the family collectively. Lily's participation in the call was particularly galling, as she claimed ignorance about the loan fraud while simultaneously arguing that Maya should take responsibility for debt that had funded her education. Lily's selective awareness and casual dismissal of her parents' crimes demonstrated that she had inherited her sense of entitlement and disregard for Maya's autonomy. The apple had not fallen far from the tree. Maya ended the call by reiterating that she would not claim responsibility for loans she had never authorized and that her family needed to address the legal and financial consequences independently. She suggested they consult with attorneys about their options, though she privately doubted they could afford competent legal representation given their deteriorating financial situation. The family relationships that had been strained for years finally reached a breaking point as Maya's refusal to enable their fraud became clear. Her parents' anger and disappointment were palpable, but Maya felt a strange sense of liberation in finally holding them accountable for their treatment of her. The confrontation was painful but necessary for her own psychological health and financial security. Maya's friends in Austin rallied around her during this difficult period, offering emotional support and practical advice about managing family conflict. Her colleague David Kim, who had immigrated from South Korea with his family, particularly understood the cultural dynamics that made Maya's situation especially complex. The pressure to prioritize family harmony over individual rights was familiar to him from his own experiences with traditional immigrant parents. The conversations with David helped Maya understand that her struggle was not just about financial fraud, but about establishing boundaries and independence within a family system that had never recognized her individual worth. The loan fraud was simply the most extreme example of a pattern that had defined her family relationship since childhood. Breaking that pattern required decisive action, despite the emotional costs. As winter approached, Maya settled into her new role as team lead while continuing to monitor the resolution of the remaining fraudulent loans. 2 of the 3 loans had been officially classified as identity theft and removed from her credit report, while the third lender was still investigating her claim. Her credit score had improved significantly, making homeownership a realistic possibility again. Maya began house hunting with renewed enthusiasm, viewing the purchase as both a practical investment and a symbolic declaration of independence from her family's dysfunction. The homes she considered were modest but well-maintained properties in emerging Austin neighborhoods that offered good value and growth potential. The careful selection process reflected her methodical approach to building long-term financial security. The house Maya ultimately chose was a 1950s bungalow in East Austin that had been thoughtfully renovated by the previous owners. The property featured original hardwood floors, updated kitchen and bathrooms, and a large backyard perfect for entertaining friends. The neighborhood was diverse and walkable, with easy access to downtown and the tech corridor where she worked. The mortgage application process proceeded smoothly with her improved credit and debt-to-income ratio. Maya's loan officer commented on her excellent financial management and stable employment history, qualifications that stood in stark contrast to the chaos her parents had created through their fraudulent actions. The approval was swift and comprehensive, allowing Maya to close on the house within 6 weeks of making her offer. Maya's housewarming party was a celebration of both her new home and her successful navigation of the identity theft crisis. The guest list included colleagues, friends, and neighbors who had supported her during the difficult period. The absence of her family was notable, but not surprising, and Maya felt no sadness about their exclusion from this milestone moment. The party conversations revealed how much Maya's confidence and happiness had improved since establishing firm boundaries with her family. Friends commented on her relaxed demeanor and genuine smile, qualities that had been strained during the fraud investigation period. Maya realized that removing toxic relationships from her life had created space for healthier connections to flourish. 3 days after the housewarming party, Maya received an unexpected visitor at her new home. Lily stood on her front porch, looking uncomfortable and uncertain, clutching a small gift bag and wearing an expression Maya had never seen before. Her sister's usual confidence was replaced by obvious nervousness as she asked if they could talk privately about the loan situation. Maya invited Lily into her living room, curious about what had prompted this unprecedented visit. Lily had never traveled anywhere independently to see Maya, and her presence in Austin suggested that something significant had changed in the family dynamics.
Maya prepared herself for another attempt at manipulation, but Lily's demeanor seemed genuinely different from her typical entitled approach. Lily's revelation was stunning in its honesty and implications. She explained that she had recently learned the full extent of their parents' financial crimes and was horrified by their actions. According to Lily, their parents had initially told her that Maya had voluntarily co-signed the loans to help with college expenses, a lie that Lily had accepted without question because it fit her understanding of Maya's responsible nature. The truth had emerged only when debt collectors began contacting Lily directly as a beneficiary of the fraudulent loans. The collection agents had explained that Maya was disputing the loans as identity theft, forcing Lily to confront the reality that their parents had committed serious crimes against her sister. The revelation had shattered Lily's understanding of her family and her own complicity in Maya's victimization. Lily's apology was more comprehensive and sincere than anything Maya had expected from her family. She acknowledged that she had been willfully ignorant about the source of her college funding and had failed to question financial arrangements that seemed too good to be true. She admitted that her sense of entitlement had made her complicit in their parents' favoritism and ultimately their criminal behavior. More importantly, Lily revealed that she had consulted with a lawyer about taking personal responsibility for the student loans that had funded her education. She understood that Maya was innocent of any wrongdoing and that the debt rightfully belonged to the person who had received the educational benefits. Lily was prepared to assume the loans and remove their parents from further financial liability. Maya was skeptical of Lily's sudden transformation, wondering if this was another manipulation designed to elicit sympathy and financial support. However, Lily produced legal documents showing that she had already begun the process of transferring the loan responsibility to herself. The paperwork was complex and would take months to complete, but Lily had committed to a course of action that would financially devastate her for years. The conversation continued for hours as Lily explained how the revelation of their parents' crimes had forced her to examine her own behavior and its consequences. She had never considered how her privileges came at Maya's expense, or how their parents' favoritism had damaged Maya's relationship with the family. The loan fraud had made the dynamics impossible to ignore or rationalize. Lily's financial situation was precarious, as she had graduated with a degree in art history that provided limited earning potential. Taking responsibility for $75,000 in student loans would require her to live extremely frugally and possibly return to school for more practical training. The decision represented a genuine sacrifice rather than empty gesture, suggesting that Lily's remorse was authentic. Maya found herself in the unexpected position of feeling sympathy for the sister who had been the source of so much frustration throughout her life. Lily's privileged upbringing had ill-prepared her for the realities of adult financial responsibility, and she was genuinely struggling to understand how to manage the consequences of their parents' actions. The golden child was finally experiencing the challenges that Maya had navigated alone for years. Lily's financial situation was precarious, as she had graduated with a degree in art history that provided limited earning potential. Taking responsibility for $75,000 in student loans would require her to live extremely frugally and possibly return to school for more practical training. The decision represented a genuine sacrifice rather than empty gesture, suggesting that Lily's remorse was authentic. Maya found herself in the unexpected position of feeling sympathy for the sister who had been the source of so much frustration throughout her life. Lily's privileged upbringing had ill-prepared her for the realities of adult financial responsibility, and she was genuinely struggling to understand how to manage the consequences of their parents' actions. The golden child was finally experiencing the challenges that Maya had navigated alone for years.
The visit concluded with Lily asking if there was any possibility of rebuilding their relationship over time. She understood that trust would have to be earned through actions rather than words, and she was prepared to accept Maya's boundaries while working toward redemption. Maya was non-committal but not dismissive, suggesting that future interactions would depend on Lily's follow-through with her legal commitments. After Lily left, Maya sat in her living room processing the unexpected conversation and its implications for her family relationships. The visit represented the first time any family member had acknowledged Maya's worth independent of her utility to others. Lily's willingness to accept financial responsibility for her own education was a radical departure from the family's historical pattern of expecting Maya to absorb consequences for others' choices.
Maya remained cautious about the prospects for reconciliation, understanding that genuine change required sustained effort rather than dramatic gestures. However, Lily's visit had planted seeds of possibility that Maya had not expected. Perhaps some family relationships could be rebuilt on healthier foundations, though the process would require patience and careful boundary management. The resolution of the loan fraud had taken nearly 6 months and consumed enormous amounts of Maya's time and emotional energy. However, the process had also clarified her values and priorities in ways that would shape her future decisions. Maya had learned that protecting her integrity and financial security required courage to confront even the most difficult family dynamics. Maya's credit had been fully restored, her career was flourishing, and she had established a stable foundation for her future in Austin. The fraudulent loans had been resolved without lasting damage to her financial standing, though the emotional scars from her family's betrayal would take longer to heal. Maya understood that recovery from family trauma was a process rather than an event. As Maya prepared for bed in her new home, she reflected on the journey from discovering the identity theft to achieving resolution and justice. The experience had tested every aspect of her strength and character, but she had emerged more confident and clear about her boundaries. Maya had learned to prioritize her own well-being without guilt or apology, a lesson that would serve her throughout her life. The road ahead remained uncertain regarding family relationships, but Maya felt optimistic about her ability to handle whatever challenges might arise. She had proven to herself that she could successfully navigate complex legal and financial problems while maintaining her professional responsibilities and personal integrity. The skills and confidence gained through this ordeal would be valuable assets for whatever the future might bring. 6 months after Lily's visit, Maya received legal confirmation that all fraudulent student loans had been successfully transferred to her sister's name. The complex process had required extensive documentation and multiple court filings, but Lily had followed through on her commitment to assume responsibility for the debt that had funded her education. Maya's credit report was finally clean, showing no trace of the loans she had never authorized. The financial transfer represented more than just paperwork resolution. Lily had essentially sentenced herself to decades of debt repayment on an art history graduate's modest salary, demonstrating genuine accountability for the family's crimes. Maya felt a mixture of relief and unexpected respect for her sister's willingness to face consequences that their parents had tried to avoid through continued manipulation and denial. Maya's parents had reacted poorly to Lily's decision to assume the loan responsibility, viewing it as a betrayal of family unity rather than appropriate accountability. They had expected Maya to eventually capitulate and accept the debt, as she had absorbed unfair treatment throughout their childhood. Lily's refusal to perpetuate the pattern of sacrificing Maya's interests had disrupted their established family dynamics in ways they found threatening and incomprehensible. The rift between Maya's parents and both daughters had widened considerably as they struggled to maintain their narrative of victimhood. They portrayed themselves as elderly immigrants who had made a simple mistake, conveniently ignoring the sophistication and premeditation required to steal Maya's identity across multiple lending institutions. Their refusal to acknowledge the severity of their crimes made any possibility of reconciliation extremely unlikely. Maya's professional life continued to flourish as she settled into her leadership role with increased confidence and effectiveness. Her team consistently delivered high-quality software projects ahead of schedule, earning recognition from senior management and clients. Maya's systematic approach to problem-solving and her ability to build collaborative relationships had proven invaluable in the fast-paced technology environment. The promotion opportunities that followed her initial advancement reflected Maya's growing reputation within the Austin tech community. She was invited to speak at industry conferences about agile development methodologies and had been approached by recruiters from major technology companies offering even more lucrative positions. Maya's career trajectory validated her decision to prioritize professional growth over family obligations. Maya's personal life in Austin had also evolved significantly since resolving the loan fraud. She had joined a hiking club that explored the beautiful Texas hill country on weekends, forming friendships with people who shared her love of outdoor activities and adventure.
The relationships were refreshingly uncomplicated, based on mutual interests rather than complex family obligations or historical grievances. Through the hiking club, Maya met Dr. Alex Chen, a pediatric surgeon at Dell Children's Medical Center who had also grown up in an immigrant family with high academic expectations. Their conversations about balancing individual aspirations with family loyalty revealed shared experiences and values that formed the foundation for a meaningful relationship. Alex understood the cultural pressures Maya had navigated without requiring extensive explanation or justification. Alex's own family background included similar dynamics of favoritism and financial manipulation, though not to the criminal extent Maya had experienced. His empathy and perspective helped Maya process the emotional aftermath of her family's betrayal while building confidence in her ability to form healthy relationships based on mutual respect and support. Their relationship developed slowly and organically without the urgency or desperation that had characterized Maya's earlier dating experiences. Maya's friendship with Lily continued to evolve cautiously as both sisters learned to interact without the toxic dynamics that had defined their childhood relationship. Lily visited Austin twice more during the year, staying in nearby hotels rather than presuming hospitality from Maya. The visits were cordial but reserved, with both women maintaining appropriate boundaries while exploring the possibility of building a healthier connection. Lily's financial struggles were evident during these visits, as she had taken a second job teaching art classes at a community center to help manage her loan payments. The demanding schedule left her exhausted and stressed, but she never complained or asked Maya for assistance. The restraint was remarkable given Lily's historical pattern of expecting others to solve her problems and absorb the consequences of her choices. During one conversation, Lily acknowledged that assuming the loan responsibility had been the first time she had ever faced genuine consequences for her actions.
The experience was teaching her about financial planning, delayed gratification, and the value of hard work in ways that her privileged upbringing had never required. She described the education as painful but necessary for her emotional and psychological development. Maya remained skeptical about the permanence of Lily's transformation, understanding that people often reverted to familiar patterns when stress or crisis tested their resolve. However, she appreciated her sister's consistent efforts to demonstrate change through actions rather than words. The gradual rebuilding of trust would require years of sustained behavior, but the foundation was being established through Lily's willingness to accept responsibility and respect boundaries. Maya's parents made several attempts to contact her directly during this period, usually during traditional holidays when family obligations were emphasized in their cultural community. The conversations were brief and uncomfortable, with her parents alternating between guilt-inducing appeals to family loyalty and bitter accusations of abandonment and ingratitude. Maya maintained polite but firm boundaries, refusing to engage in arguments or justifications. The most revealing conversation occurred during Chinese New Year, when Maya's mother called to inform her that several family friends had asked about her absence from family celebrations. Maya's mother was clearly embarrassed by having to explain why her successful daughter was not participating in traditional gatherings, particularly since Maya's achievements were often topics of pride in their immigrant community. Maya suggested that her mother could explain the situation truthfully by acknowledging that their relationship had been damaged by financial crimes and that rebuilding trust would require time and genuine accountability. Her mother's horrified reaction to this suggestion revealed how invested she remained in maintaining appearances rather than addressing the underlying problems that had created the family rift. The conversation ended with Maya's mother accusing her of caring more about money than family, a statement so disconnected from reality that Maya almost laughed. Her parents had literally stolen her identity for money, yet they portrayed her refusal to absorb the consequences as greed rather than appropriate self-protection. The psychological projection was remarkable in its completeness and self-serving nature. Maya's relationship with Alex deepened throughout the year as they navigated the challenges of demanding careers while building a life together. Alex's surgical schedule was unpredictable and intense, while Maya's technology projects often required extended hours during critical development phases. They learned to support each other's professional commitments while maintaining their individual identities and aspirations.
Alex's approach to family relationships provided a valuable model for Maya as she considered her options with her own relatives. He maintained loving connections with his parents while establishing clear boundaries about their involvement in his personal and professional decisions. The balance required constant negotiation, but it allowed him to preserve important relationships without sacrificing his autonomy or well-being. Maya's house in East Austin became a gathering place for their combined friend groups, hosting dinner parties and game nights that created the warm community atmosphere she had always craved. The relationships were chosen rather than obligated, based on genuine affection and shared values rather than blood ties or historical connections. Maya realized she had successfully created the family environment she had always wanted through intentional relationship building. 2 years after the loan fraud discovery, Maya received an unexpected letter from her father written in both English and Chinese characters. The letter was notably different from their previous communications, lacking the typical guilt-inducing language or demands for reconciliation. Instead, her father offered a straightforward acknowledgement of his crimes and their impact on Maya's life and well-being. The letter revealed that Maya's parents had been attending counseling sessions with a therapist who specialized in immigrant family dynamics and financial trauma. The sessions had forced them to confront the reality of their actions and the damage they had caused to both daughters through their favoritism and criminal behavior. Her father's words suggested genuine remorse rather than strategic manipulation designed to elicit forgiveness. More significantly, the letter included information about a savings account her parents had established to pay Maya for the professional and emotional costs of resolving their fraud. They had calculated the hours she had spent on legal proceedings, the lost opportunities from delayed home buying, and the therapy expenses she had incurred to process the family trauma. The account contained $15,000 with a commitment to add more as their financial situation improved. Maya was surprised by her parents' attempt at financial restitution, which demonstrated a level of accountability she had not expected them to achieve. The money could never fully compensate for the betrayal and its emotional impact, but the gesture suggested they were beginning to understand the concrete costs of their actions beyond abstract concepts of hurt feelings or damaged relationships. The letter concluded with a request for a supervised meeting with their family therapist present to facilitate communication and ensure appropriate boundaries. Maya's parents acknowledged that they had no right to expect forgiveness or reconciliation, but they hoped for an opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to change and make amends for their behavior. Maya discussed the letter with Alex, who encouraged her to consider the meeting while maintaining realistic expectations about the possibilities for meaningful change. His perspective was that people could evolve under sufficient pressure and support, but that transformation required consistent reinforcement rather than isolated gestures. The therapeutic supervision would provide structure and accountability that might make productive conversation possible. After several weeks of consideration, Maya agreed to attend one session with her parents and their therapist with the understanding that future meetings would depend on the outcome and her comfort level. She was curious about the changes they claimed to make while remaining appropriately skeptical about their motivations and capacity for sustained improvement. The therapy session took place in a neutral office in Denver during Maya's visit to Colorado for a technology conference. The therapist, Dr. Maria Santos, had extensive experience with immigrant families and financial trauma, providing cultural context for the dynamics that had shaped Maya's family relationships. Her approach was direct but respectful, facilitating difficult conversations without minimizing the severity of the crimes or their impact. Maya's parents appeared significantly older and more fragile than she remembered, with visible signs of stress and financial hardship etched in their faces. Their clothing was noticeably worn and their demeanor subdued, suggesting that the consequences of their actions had finally penetrated their awareness in ways that previous confrontations had not achieved. The session began with Maya's parents reading prepared statements acknowledging their crimes and the damage they had caused to Maya's financial security and emotional well-being. The statements were comprehensive and specific, avoiding the vague apologies and deflections that had characterized their previous communications. Dr. Santos had clearly worked extensively with them to develop genuine accountability rather than superficial remorse. Maya's father's statement was particularly revealing as he described the entitled mindset that had led him to view Maya's success as a family resource rather than her individual achievement. He acknowledged that his favoritism toward Lily was based on his perception of her as more vulnerable and needy, while Maya's competence had made her seem less deserving of support and protection. Her mother's statement focused on the cultural pressures she had felt to ensure both daughters' success, leading her to justify increasingly extreme measures to provide opportunities for Lily. She admitted that her fear of Lily's failure had blinded her to the ethics of her actions and the rights of Maya as an individual rather than just a family member.
The statements were followed by an opportunity for Maya to express her feelings about their crimes and the broader pattern of favoritism that had shaped her childhood. Maya spoke calmly but directly about the impact of never feeling valued or protected by the people who should have prioritized her well-being. She described the loneliness of facing medical and financial challenges without family support and the difficulty of building trust in other relationships after such fundamental betrayal. Dr. Santos facilitated the conversation skillfully, preventing defensive reactions from Maya's parents while ensuring that Maya felt heard and validated. The session concluded with a discussion of realistic expectations for any future relationship, emphasizing that rebuilding trust would require years of consistent behavior rather than dramatic gestures or promises. Maya left the session feeling emotionally drained but cautiously optimistic about the possibility of limited reconciliation with her parents. Their accountability seemed more genuine than she had expected, though she remained realistic about the likelihood of sustaining such changes without ongoing therapeutic support. The meeting had provided closure for some of her anger while opening possibilities she had not previously considered. 6 months later, Maya received an invitation to Lily's small wedding ceremony in Denver. Her sister was marrying a fellow teacher she had met at the community center where she taught art classes. The man, David Rodriguez, was aware of Lily's financial situation and family history, yet had chosen to build a life with her based on who she was becoming rather than her past mistakes. Maya attended the wedding with Alex, marking the first family event she had participated in since discovering the loan fraud 3 years earlier. The ceremony was modest and heartfelt, with Lily looking genuinely happy despite the financial constraints that had shaped her recent life. Maya's parents were present but respectful of the boundaries Maya had established, avoiding pressure for extended conversation or forced intimacy. The wedding reception provided an opportunity for Maya to observe her family's changed dynamics firsthand. Her parents' relationship with Lily had evolved from indulgent enablement to appropriate support, with clear expectations about responsibility and accountability. Lily's new husband had apparently influenced these changes by establishing firm boundaries about financial assistance and emotional manipulation. Maya's brief conversation with Lily revealed continued growth and maturity as her sister navigated married life and ongoing debt repayment. Lily spoke honestly about the challenges of her financial situation while expressing gratitude for the opportunity to build a relationship based on genuine partnership rather than dependency. The transformation seemed authentic and sustainable given the external pressures that reinforced her new behaviors. Maya's parents approached her near the end of the reception to thank her for attending and to provide an update on their continued therapy and financial restitution efforts. They had added another $5,000 to the account established for Maya and were participating in a support group for families affected by financial crimes. Their efforts seemed genuine, though Maya remained appropriately cautious about their long-term commitment to change. The wedding marked a turning point in Maya's relationship with her family, though she maintained realistic boundaries about the extent of possible reconciliation. She was willing to participate in occasional family events and maintain cordial communication, but she would never again prioritize family harmony over her own well-being or accept responsibility for others' poor choices. Maya's life in Austin continued to flourish as she and Alex became more serious about their long-term future together. They purchased a larger home in a rapidly developing neighborhood, combining their resources to invest in property that reflected their shared values and aspirations. The house featured a home office where Maya could work remotely and a garden where Alex could pursue his interest in sustainable farming. Maya's career had evolved to include consulting work with technology startups, leveraging her experience and reputation to help emerging companies develop effective development processes and team management strategies. The consulting income supplemented her salary and provided flexibility for travel and other personal interests that had been constrained during her years of family crisis and career building.
The resolution of the loan fraud and its aftermath had taught Maya valuable lessons about setting boundaries, demanding accountability, and building relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation. These skills served her well in all aspects of her life, from professional negotiations to personal friendships to her romantic relationship with Alex. Maya reflected occasionally on the journey from discovering her parents' crimes to building a stable and fulfilling life in Austin. The experience had been devastating and transformative in equal measure, forcing her to confront painful truths about her family while developing strengths and insights that served her well in creating better relationships. The crisis had ultimately led to growth and opportunities that might not have emerged under different circumstances. The most significant lesson Maya had learned was that family loyalty did not require accepting abuse or criminal behavior from relatives. True love and respect required accountability and boundaries, not endless tolerance for harmful actions. Maya's willingness to demand justice for herself had ultimately benefited her entire family by forcing them to confront their dysfunctional patterns and work toward healthier interactions. Maya's story became a source of inspiration for friends and colleagues who faced similar challenges with family relationships and financial manipulation. Her experience demonstrated that it was possible to overcome even severe betrayal while maintaining integrity and building a fulfilling life. The key was prioritizing long-term well-being over short-term family harmony and refusing to enable harmful behavior even from beloved relatives. As Maya and Alex planned their own wedding, she felt grateful for the hard-won wisdom that would help them build a marriage based on equality, respect, and genuine partnership. The contrast with her family's dysfunction was stark and motivating Maya to create the kind of relationship she had always wanted but never experienced. Her journey from victim to survivor to thriver was complete, though the lessons learned would continue shaping her choices for years to come. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.